You've got handouts of some movies that are made in the national parks and a checklist. And a checklist so you can figure out where you've been or where you want to go. I've got 17 of them. 2 of them I went to before they were national parks. And 3 of them I've been through but never really saw the gate or got a brochure. Like these are all the brochures the Rangers hand out. So I don't count those. And on the other side, there's a checklist if you're going traveling. Make it your own. There's things you might want to get. I developed it when I was a wedding photographer, and I kept having nightmares about showing up at a wedding with no camera, no batteries, one time no pants. Let's see. When available, I have people or vehicles in the pictures for scale, so you can see how big things are. And I used 40 internet images in this talk that we didn't produce, just to tie the geological and historic narrative together. So this isn't just a bunch of vacation pictures, even though it is. Okay. Lights, please. Okay. Writer Wallace Stegner is credited with calling the national parks America's best idea. In 1872, is there any light in here? I want all the light.
So it's all or none.
Okay. In 1872, President Grant signed legislation to create Yellowstone National Park for the benefit of the people. In 1916, Woodrow Wilson signed the act creating the National Park Service to conserve the scenery and natural and historic objects and the wildlife therein for the enjoyment of future generations. In between these dates was a bunch of lobbying. John Muir worked on, the naturalist, worked on Teddy Roosevelt, took him out to Yosemite and sat right there, wherever that is, in Yosemite. And in 1871, Thomas Moran and William Henry Jackson were members of the Hayden expedition to survey Yellowstone. Moran's paintings showed the color that Jackson's photographs could not. And they worked together because they knew their job was to convince Congress to protect these things. This was a valid concern, having the color and the photographs, because it's 1871. A lot of people had heard of geysers, but damn few had ever seen one. So people thought they were making it up. So that's why the color of the paintings and the reality of the photographs were necessary. Gear this guy had to carry. They didn't have wagons, roads. Mostly it was done by donkeys. That's a negative of his. That's how they did it in those days. Matthew Brady, the big glass plates. So he had to carry all that, plus all the chemicals to develop it on the spot. That's how he moved it.
Wow. Wow.
We think of taking pictures, we got, or the phone, not in those days. There are 428 units in the national park system. covering 85 million square acres and about 133,000 square miles, which is a little bigger than Maryland. It's enough to be our, sorry, no it isn't, but it's about enough to be our 5th largest state. It has 20,000 employees, including 14,000 rangers. They make about 40 grand a year, which isn't enough. And they also have a 250,000 volunteers. So there's over 20 designations for its attractions. It's not just national parks.
I don't know why it wants to open that so bad.
You want me to do that?
Yeah. Oh, you can just do it from here.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. There are 84 national monuments.
Was that Devil's Tower back there? Is
That's
that
it.
what that was?
Oh, where'd it go? Back one. Yeah. So there's 84 national monuments, including Devil's Tower, the Little Bighorn,
This is not that good.
next one, yeah. And Statue of Liberty. I don't know why Little Bighorn is a national monument and not a battle site or something, but that's what they do. 63 historic parks. Parker's Ferry
This one?
and Valley Forge. 74 national historic sites. Ford's Theater, that's what I thought Little Bighorn should be. Ford's Theater where Lincoln was shot, and then Manzanar is one. 31 national memorials. Next. Next.
Yeah, go ahead. That would.
That's Flight 93.
Yeah, 93.
Johnstown flood. And 2 from Mount Rushmore. Okay. Antietam is a national battlefield. Manassas is a national battlefield park. Gettysburg is a national military park. And by the way, Arlington National Cemetery is run by the Army, and Allegheny forests and such are run by the Forest Service. We have national lake shores, national seashores, national parkways like Blue Ridge, national recreation area, Glen Canyon Dam and Lake Powell. And then a couple hundred miles down the road, Hoover Dam and Lake Mead. Now they look horrible because of the water level. And I checked it out, and the highest level is only 150 feet higher than it is. But there's so much volume in the width that if it goes down another 150 feet, they won't be able to get any power from the dam.
Wow.
And the dams are run by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, which I never heard of until 3 weeks ago. And I thought it was kind of silly because they're not reclaiming land, they're killing it. And the Appalachian Trail is a national scenic trail. And then there's the 63 national parks. Yellowstone, Yosemite, twice, Grand Canyon, and the Mighty Five of Utah. National parks are generally large areas of wilderness that are unique and gorgeous. National monuments are proclaimed by the President under the Antiquities Act of 1906. National parks are established by an act of Congress. The land under the proposed unit must be federally owned. Monuments can be small. The Thaddeus Kosciuszko National Memorial in Philadelphia is 1/50th of an acre, but national parks require 2,500 acres. The biggest is Wrangell St. Elias in Alaska at 8.3 million acres. That's a bit bigger than Maryland.
Wow.
And the smallest is currently Gateway Arch at 91 acres, but there's a lot of talk that it shouldn't be a national park. It's not big enough, and it's man-made. Great Smoky Mountains, because the next biggest national park besides that is Hot Springs, Arkansas at 5,500. Great Smoky Mountains has the most visitors at 13 million, and the fewest is in the National Park of American Samoa. They had 1,800 last year. Yeah, for the geology. The subjects of today's The subject of today's pictures exists for one reason: geology. Ironically, the desert's most precious and scarce resource is the primary agent of erosion and immense landscape change. Water, whether in the form of rain, ice, or flowing along the ground, made all these incredible things.
I don't know how to make that bigger.
Full page. Let's close it.
This one.
No, next one. Left. Right click it. Open with photos. All right.
Yes.
Geology created the ancient seas and oceans that covered a large part of the current western states. The seas gathered silt, rocks, and unfortunate creatures who would become our fossils. And layer by layer, which got squeezed and became sedimentary rocks, and squeezed again to make metamorphic rock. It is part of the rock cycle. No. Silt is just sediment, but it actually has definitions. The particles are larger than clay and smaller than sand. All three are created by erosion. Next. About 270 million years ago, most of Earth's land masses had drifted together to form a supercontinent called Pangaea, a theory Alfred Wegener called continental drift because he noticed that Africa and South America fit together. And he backed it up by finding fossils up in Europe, down in Africa and South America that all matched. The process of forming Pangaea, tectonic plates on the move, also created the Rocky Mountains and raised seabeds about 12,000 feet, about which 5,000 have already eroded away. Continental drift has a cycle of its own. 200 million years ago, it started breaking up and the land masses started moving toward their current positions. They go at a rate of 2/3 of an inch a year. That's about what your toenails grow. And for instance, the Indian subcontinent is currently crashing into Asia and creating the Himalayas. Next. Water runoff from this elevated surface started and is still carving the landscape we see today. Back in the day, the Flintstones saw the Grand Canyon like this. The area is known as the Colorado Plateau, and it includes 130,000 square miles, sort of centered over four corners, New Mexico. The plateau includes part of Utah, where all her national parks are, plus the Grand Canyon and Petrified Forest in Arizona and Mesa Verde in Colorado. 18 other national park units, remember those other things we talked about, are also here. We visited Grand Staircase Escalante, which is quite a discovery, and Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. In addition, to host a bunch of equally fabulous state parks. You should see the state parks, like Dead Horse and Anasazi we saw. Okay, thanks, Mom.
That's like museum in Du Bois,
Here?
Wyoming.
Oh,
Du Bois, Wyoming, where I told you the museum is, the military museum.
Right click.
one minute. Photos. You're looking at Mr. Bryce and his wife Mary. Her maiden name was Park, ironically. They came from Scotland. He was a shipbuilder, and I don't know if he was, I think he was Mormon when he got here, because the Latter-day Saints Church sent him to settle the area. He built irrigation canals for farming and roads to harvest timber, so people started calling it Bryce's Canyon. He left about 1880, leaving his name behind, and a chapel he built using ship construction techniques. The attic is like the keel of a ship, so he said, if we ever flood, it'll float. And then he built a chapel in Pine Valley near Bryce. It is both the oldest Mormon church anywhere, and is still active, and it's on the U.S. National Register of Historic Places. And the other thing he's known for is describing Bryce as a hell of a place to lose a cow. Ironically, Bryce Canyon is not a canyon. It's a series of amphitheaters like this. They're 1,000 feet deep. The columns look like people, so they call them silent cities. Hoodoos. These are those hoodoos, mostly sandstone and limestone, carved by rain, ice, and gravity, but they say not wind. I don't know why. Columns are carved because different rocks erode at different rates. And the word hoodoo is thought to come from the area of West Africa via Louisiana. It's like voodoo. Shuttles operate April through October but aren't required yet. Here's one. One thing I got to emphasize is the national parks have started requiring you to register ahead before you go with your vehicle. And the purpose of this is crowd control, but the bigger purpose is you have to fill in a bunch of information to Uncle Yosemite Sam to get in there.
That's why the shuttle. Can you hear a pin drop in those amphitheaters?
No, you hear wind.
Wind, just the wind. It's unbelievable.
Now this is how all this erosion and creation is still taking place. This little tree, go to the next one, used to be firmly planted. Here's one bristlecone pine, it looks like that. And he's going to go down the hill. And all these viewpoints and ledges people are on are going to go down the hill in a while. Maybe not too fast, but
And then these are different cliffs across the way,
yeah.
completely different.
The tour guide didn't tell me what they were. Might be the staircase.
It might be Escalante, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Is it? Yeah. Escalante, that's the first one. Right. Right. Capitol Reef, FDR established it as a national monument in 1937. It was promoted to national park in 1971 by President Nixon. It took 3 decades of special interest wrangling over use and management of the land to establish the park. Many had been mining, drilling, ranching in the area for decades when the whispers of the park began. Utahns already thought the feds controlled too much land in their state and didn't want more. Part of the discussion was about whether to combine the reef with the Grand Staircase, making almost the entire Colorado Plateau an untouchable area. The boundaries surround a 100-mile geological formation called the Water Pocket Fold, which is a fold that one side goes up and the other side of the layers don't. So one side of the fold is 7,000 feet higher than the other, but the rocks are the same, composition and age. Other folds, that's an anticline, makes a hill, a syncline makes a valley. And you say this water pocket fold is the second longest in the world, and the other one's in Australia, and from what I hear, they got some pretty crazy geology as well. So that is the fold. One more. That's it from space. Capitol Reef got its name from the formations in the park. Cliffs of Navajo sandstone are topped by white domes resembling Capitol buildings, or Jabba the Hutt, one of the two. The reef part comes from the fold because it's a barrier to east-west travel, just like a coral reef would stop a ship going one direction or the other. And we didn't see it, because I didn't know it was there. I didn't do my homework. These are called tafoni, or T-A-F-O-N-I, or solution circles. And just depending on the minerals in it, the water can... They're similar to the way the hoodoos form in Bryce Canyon. I think you're next.
Is that it?
Oh, that's Fruta.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That was one of the first settlements in the area.
Yeah.
We picked a bunch of apples. They were loud.
Did you walk back that, by the stone wall where the wagons came through and they wrote their name and when they
No.
came through? And some of it was way up high, that's how much it's eroded. It was
Mhm.
very interesting.
It was packed.
Was
There
it?
no place
Even
to
in
park.
October.
It was
Or
so
late September.
interesting,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you could park, but we couldn't even find a place to park. Captain Reef.
We did walk up there. That was our That was our hike.
How many miles?
Maybe less than one.
We did not do much hiking.
No.
Getting taking a picture. Here's a little neat for scale. It's a slot canyon, and next picture I laid down on the ground, just look up.
And it floods, it's very dangerous.
Yeah. These streaks are called desert varnish, and depending on the minerals mixing with the clay and the oxides, they're pretty. And talk about the erosion. Anytime you see a rock on the ground, it came from up there, and they're still falling. That's what they're going to do. Even if they're bigger than houses, if they fell.
This is all Captain Reef.
Capitol Reef was my favorite part. And like I said, we didn't even see most of it. Do not enter if storm threatening. If you're in a canyon, you can get flash flooded from a storm miles away. You might have a clear blue sky.
That's the dangerous part.
Track up with it.
I don't know who
Do
used
they have a warning system if there's?
it. They just put up signs.
Oh.
That's why I like the national parks. They don't stop you. They just tell you. Arches. All right. Arches was established in 1929, became a national park in 1971. Utah had the Olympics in 2002. They brought the torch through Arches. They have the densest concentration of natural stone arches in the world, over 2,000 of them, and they have to be over 3 feet long to count. They're made of Entrada sandstone, which is held together using various amounts of calcium carbonate and cement, so the rocks erode at different rates, causing the arches and the hoodoos to form. We're going to see balanced rock, but that's not it. I don't know why. Reservations are required. We found out about 36 hours before we got there. Luckily, we were in a town that had full service on the internet. So they name a lot of these things. And like the constellations, I think there's some peyote or something involved in naming. 3 sisters? No, it's 3 gossips.
That Monument Valley has some pretty.
And they think there was an arch there that fell. That's balanced rock. It's 128 feet total. The head is 55 feet and weighs like 300 tons. I was hoping it would squash her, but
Close to me. You can take pictures.
would have been a picture. This is a little walk up the hill, so I did that. And this one, that was a combination of like 3 arches, 3 different directions.
Oh, it's over there too.
Yeah.
And then those are the people.
There you
skating.
go.
It's right there.
Yeah. Across the road. It was crowded. Even that late.
Yeah, in October.
This is Delicate Arch. That's the one that's on all the license plates.
This one?
Yeah.
We walked up there. It was about a 3-mile hike.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I looked at it with my long lens.
No, Monica.
It was still bloody warm. It was like 85 or so.
What time of year were you there?
Late September, early October.
That's when we always go.
Fiery furnace. Go back one. So this big chunk fell about 30 years ago. They're falling down. Get out of the way. This is Skyline Arch. A little truck for scale. These are interesting. Petrified dunes, they call them. It's not called a lion, I don't know. Or maybe it is. This is a Moab at the top of arches. The rocks and everything are the same, but they're 140 million years different in exposure. That's the visitor center. So I said I've been to 17 national parks. I only count them if I go through the visitor center. And the ranger gives me a little brochure, like the ones on the table. Yeah. Open films first.
This one.
Yeah. If you like films and not just westerns, this place should look familiar. Familiar territory. Okay, that's a western. My Darling Clementine. Okay, that's a western. Okay, that's a western. He's not. Forrest Gump. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The third, Back to the Future. National Lampoon Vacation. There's Thelma and Louise again. Age of Extinction, Transformers. He wasn't the first movie there. They had one in 1925, but he was the one who really put it on the map, so to speak. Stagecoach made a star out of John Wayne. Came back for The Searchers. Okay. It is not a national park. It's a national, it's called Monument Valley National Tribal Park. It is not Navajo National Tribal Park. Not national, stop saying it. Monument Valley Navajo Tribal Park. It is not part of the Park Service, nor is Four Corners. And receives no federal funds. Both are on Native American land, with the Navajo Reservation and Navajo Nation parks and recreation making the rules regarding road maintenance, and they're not big fans, and permits for things like weddings and hiking. They decide when to close the park due to weather, heavy rain, or heat. We tried to go the day before, but they shut it for the wind.
Couldn't see it. They couldn't see ahead. Ready for the next one?
Yeah. Oh, gotta get out of this one. There you go. And again. Is Mary having breakfast with a nice view?
Yeah, that was my view.
Right in the gift shop, they had a bunch of stuff. We didn't get any. Because we flew out, we had to carry everything back, so it wasn't like we had our car like previous times.
That was my breakfast.
Yeah.
This is called the elephant. That one.
The other one, yeah. There's a little trunk. So it's a reservation. People still live there, but they don't want you on their property. Oh, birth of a tumbleweed, watch it. Yeah.
Did you take this?
What's that near, what's that near
That's
that?
Camel, is it?
Huh?
What?
That park, the Indian park.
Oh,
what-
it is just south, sort of on the border of Arizona and Utah.
We stayed in Arizona
Yeah.
and went that day, it was like within 3 miles from where we stayed into Utah. So it's right on the border.
About 50 miles from Fort Myers, I think.
Real close to the Fort Myers.
I love that dog. I want to take him home.
And they told us not to feed them or,
Were they wild?
they're wild.
What kind of dog was that?
I don't know. It's gorgeous.
They were wild. They needed water, I mean,
Aw.
Bristlecone pine. They must be survivors because I think the oldest tree known is like 3,000-year-old bristlecone pine, somewhere up near Redwoods.
most of the time Mike had a camera in front of his face.
Yeah.
The road was horrible.
It was. Gee, how those boulders get there? That looks like a wash. This was interesting. They don't allow cremation because they think it's a desecration. Same with Orthodox Jews and Muslims.
Which is funny because they used to do all those things on the Western.
That's why the Nazis tattooed the Jews, because it was forbidden for Jews to have tattoos. The Navajo code talkers came from this area. Nope. Stay away. Future tumbleweed. Oh, the totem pole.
Let's just take pictures of the road.
That's it.
This was one of our favorite places.
That's called the thumb. That's for the guided tours from the Navajos, but I didn't see any cushions in those seats.
Were those guided tours by
Those
the
were,
Navajo?
Well, I
Yeah.
don't even know if they were talking, were they?
Oh. Nice man on a horse on a cliff. Taking my picture. His name is Spirit. Okay, happy trail.
It's a forward.
My favorite national park policy. When asked what advice I would give people or young people, because even though I'm asked far too infrequently, I answer use Roth IRAs because taxes will be higher in the future. Don't lie, especially to yourself. Take care of your teeth. Don't be like me. And go to as many parks as you can. State parks, national parks. I was 55 when I got to my first national park. Don't wait till you retire to have the time. You'll be too busy then too. We drove cross country 3 times in the 20-teens while we were still working. Before you go, do your homework. You know the parks are more crowded when school's out. You can learn what to bring or not bring. Use my checklist to start. What to do and not do, like remove fossils. You know, need to learn firearms policy for your parks and the states that they're in. Pets usually must be tethered. Prepare for the weather. Sudden storms can come up like the ones that blew us out of the Badlands in 2012. It started as a beautiful, nice day, and then
That was a little scary.
That was scary. We thought we were gonna get tornado.
We were on the bottom of that, and then we had to drive up out of it.
Some parks close roads early in the fall, anticipating winter, like trying to go to the north rim of the canyon. And conversely, we went to Rocky Mountain National Park July 4th weekend. They had just opened their highest elevation roads the week before. And also we discovered you can't go to Pikes Peak on July 4th and just show up and go. Bring maps. There's many areas out west you'll have no service. Have your maps ahead of time. We use AAA. They keep hitting us with maps and brochures. They're really nice. Know what physical shape you're in. Many of the best sites.
I make the buffalo.
Oh, I want the slide. Yeah. Many of the best sites are hikers. You have to hike to get to them. The most we do is flat walks, about a mile or two. Your homework will tell you the difficulty and distance of each trail. They're graded. And one of the things I like about the parks is the way everyone is cool and flexible and fluid with their driving practices. People stop on the road or in the middle of the road when they spot something that looks good. Nobody honks or curses. They wait their turn to see what they're looking at, even if they don't even know sometimes, because that's what we're there for, to see sights.
He took these
Are,
pictures.
are there both buffalo and bison out there? or-
There's no buffalo.
They're bison.
Yeah. There's no buffalo in North America. They're all in Southeast Asia. The difference is the split of the horns. There's a ridge along buffalo. Water buffalo like in Thailand, but ours have always been bison.
Which is like a mix between like a cow and the old bison.
I don't know where they came from. But they hang by the road, people just look at them.
It's just like a nipple.
And the same politeness occurs at viewpoints, because everybody wants to see. See, I waited my turn to get up there. I let the kid take his picture. Garrison Keillor said, nature is trying to kill you. People have died over the years during their ignorance or carelessness, trying to walk, step, climb places they can't, or the terrain can't handle them. You know, you grab a ledge and it crumbles in your hand. This is a chart from 2007 to 2018. 2,600 people died in the national parks. Only 8 were from animals. But it gives you an idea. A lot of drownings, because that's the Lake Mead, stuff like that. Vehicle crashes.
I like the one in the Grand Canyon. Somebody will take somebody's picture and they get too close to the edge and
Somebody at Bryce fell while we were there.
Yeah.
And watch out for critters.
Bears.
The grizzly we saw at Rocky Mountain, and they're babies.
That's it, yeah. These guys were at, you're sitting, Yellowstone.
This is Yellowstone.
They were sitting
They're
at the
park
park.
by the visitor center.
Yeah, they were sitting on.
Gone to the post office. Photographers are nuts. Hey, that's neat. That was a good picture. One of the things on my bring it with you list is an EpiPen, because I get stung. Oh, this is Glacier Point in Yosemite. This is a little overhang at Glacier Point. It's 3,200 feet. Back one. 3,200 feet down. And yet, people are nuts. This guy's doing it in winter. This guy brought their car.
I didn't know. Just go crazy. Well, these are the things people do.
Yeah.
Thermal area, people.
Pierce Brosnan just recently was charged with going off the path in Yellowstone. Look, this is stuff that'll crumble in your hand when you're standing on it. Next to a 600-foot drop. People do crazy things in national parks. The erosive forces that created these guys are still active. Yellowstone is sits on a 1,300 square mile volcanic caldera, which is a collapsed
Yeah.
volcanic cone. Change is constant. The rocks were all formed in different climates, like tropics, desert, ice ages. Everything in the pictures and everything, every place you visit will be gone one day. So in conclusion, two-dimensional pictures are much better than these. They don't do justice to the gobsmacking beauty of the parks. When you get there, the depth of the third dimension, the feel of the wind and the weather, and when you walk up, it's the astonishment when you go to around the bend or walk up to one of those viewpoints. It just pulls the breath out of you. So go to the parks, and you'll never misuse the word awesome again. It is not to describe, I gave somebody a book of stamps one day. Oh, that's awesome. No, it's not. I don't. People don't listen. This is where we stayed a couple of times. It's really great. The bowling alley, big swimming pool. It's Mesquite, Arizona. We stayed there where John Wayne did when he was filming stuff. That's his room. Beautiful bed. A camera shower curtain. I wanted to steal it.
One more to go.
Okay,
This is,
on the road.
and if anybody wants to.
No kidding, am I kidding?
Oh,
This is
yeah.
leaving Las Vegas. We left Vegas. We spent 2 days in Vegas. We went to the Sphere. We went to Allegiant Stadium where the Super Bowl was last week. Made friends with a cheerleader who was our tour guide. And these are just things we saw on the road from the car. I call them drive-by shootings. Well, that was in this store. Yum.
Eat.
Any questions? I must have said everything.
How long did it take you, once you got to Utah, to do the tour of the national parks?
We took our time, but we didn't see everything. So we were there about 10 days in Utah.
This is the Hollow Mountain.
It's a store inside the cave. Better for temperature either way, hot or cold. Oh, and this is the Paiute gas station, and I've never been called a tongue wet before. This is a restaurant in Green River. I don't know what the office is.
Wearing that.
At the beginning, you said something about the.
Colorado River in California should come up with to catch the rain.
Any questions? Yeah, these are just road pictures.
At the beginning, you said something about the rangers only getting a $40,000 a year amount. You seem to think that was quite a bit, but don't they provide housing on the land for these people to live in?
I don't know.
Most of the time they do.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
what
very
would-
hard to do.
if somebody fell off one of those viewpoints or something like that, because,
It's happened.
yeah, how long does it take for an ambulance or anything like that? I mean, is there,
All depends on where they land.
all depends on where they land? Okay, I wondered if that was the reason, you know, we were all led to believe, I think that Selma and Louise went off the Grand Canyon. But was that canyon more clean-upable after the act?
Well, the state parks was more open to commercial interest.
Oh, for the
So
money.
that's why they used Dead Horse
Okay,
State
because I
Park.
was gonna say that there would have been an explosion and metal all over.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Next week's topic is the solar eclipse. We have a professor from Barron, I believe is where it's from, who will be talking about that. We all know the solar eclipse is a big deal because Erie's supposed to be the prime spot to watch. So we welcome you to come next week. And thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.